Hello, everyone, and welcome to Trellis Studio. I'm Jake Mitchell, Senior Manager of Startup Programs with Trellis Group. I'm excited to welcome Mina Lee, Group Sustainability Accelerator Lead at Capgemini to Trellis Studio. Mina, welcome.
Hi, Jake. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure to have you. Thanks for being here. So let's jump right in. For context, demand for clean energy is growing really fast, and it's accelerated by data center load growth. The Electric Power Research Institute estimates that data centers could grow to consume up to 9% of US electricity generation annually by 2030, and that's up from 4% of total load growth in 2023. So, in your view, what measures are still needed to meet this clean energy demand, and especially from the technology side?
Speed and scale are really important right now. So we're seeing a lot of public and private partnerships to be able to meet those demands. From a public entity perspective, from a government perspective, the government's working really hard to enable transmission lines to be built from a funding standpoint as well as an actual execution standpoint. But this is also where the partnership comes in between the public and private entities, where government provides the funding mechanisms to be able to enable these transmission lines to be built across the different states across the country, but also from the private entity standpoint to be able to execute on these renewable energy projects, which is really important. So yeah, we're seeing that as the largest challenge for the build out, but also seeing a lot of policy being enacted in order to expedite that build out.
Definitely. And I know you mentioned public and private partnerships there, and they're really necessary for the speed and scale that we need that you were mentioning. Can you give us an example of what you mean by public and private partnerships?
Yeah. So, the public, entity, the government, provides things like the policy framework, regulatory frameworks, and also the government funding mechanisms. So essentially, they're providing the incentives for private entities to join in on, the clean energy transition. So an example would be a utility company that wants to provide community solar, and in doing that, they're providing rebates and discounts for communities and in the area. But this is a really great example of a public utility, which is a private entity that's really taking advantage of some of the government subsidies that are provided and then providing these rebates to customers. Another example would be providing utility scale a private entity that wants to provide wind farm generation on public land. There's obviously subsidies provided there, but also clean energy generation. So this is kind of a partnership between having the right private project, renewable energy project, but also the government provided subsidies as well as mechanisms to enable that project.
To switch gears just slightly, a
Mhm.
lot of our dirty infrastructure, for example, power plants, waste management facilities, airports, et cetera, are typically adjacent to low income or disadvantaged communities. And so, with the scaling of new clean energy infrastructure and these public private partnerships, how do we ensure a just energy transition to make sure that disadvantaged communities aren't treated the same that they have in the past?
Yeah, and the primary stakeholder in this just energy transition is really the communities that are living in the areas that are, and especially those who are disproportionately impacted because of the fossil fuel industry. So we want to make sure that their feedback and their input are integrated as part of any kind of build outs or new and renewable energy projects, because at the end of the day, they live in these communities and they live and work, and their health and well-being are the primary goal to make sure that these are provided the best lives. They're provided the best livelihoods. So yeah, so their input is really important.
Absolutely. Yeah, community partnerships are so important, understanding the needs and to work in tandem with, their values. Um, so thanks, Mina, for really laying out how we need to scale energy, clean energy effectively and equitably. So thanks for your time today. Thank you all for tuning in. You just heard from Mina Lee, Group Sustainability Accelerator Lead at Capgemini. Thank you for joining us at Trellis Studio, and have a great day.
Thanks, Jake.